Is my camera going to work this time? Why is my camera not working? All right, it says I'm live again, but my camera is not working. So the video I did this morning, I was told you guys could see me. So hopefully that is the case as well, and that it's just stuck on my end. So to start out, we are going to smudge just a little teeny bit here. So let me get a leaf. We are here today to talk about Samhain, what it is, why we celebrate it, how we celebrate it. So if someone's watching, could you please tell me if you can see me besides just my, like you can actually see the video and not just a picture of me, because that's all I see is just a picture of me. All right, so we're going to put that there. And to start out, we're going to pick a card. Normally I don't pick a card during this time, but so this is a deck I have here in the shop. It is Season of the Witch, and it is a Samhain oracle. So I just thought it would be kind of fun if we shuffled and maybe picked a card out of here. So just to see. So not for anybody particular, just for the group as a whole. Just shuffle these a little bit here. And this one. All right, what did we get? What did we get? I've never used these cards before, so I'm not familiar with them. But the card that came up was Voices. It says, with a tug at the gut, feel them romance your very breath. Listen to the gentle flickering within your eyes, for this is where they guide. All right, well, I will put a picture of that up. I find it very interesting that there's 3 on there, my number. So I'll put a picture of that up for you guys. Just something fun to do different. So, all right. Hopefully, like I said, you guys can see me and you're not just looking at my still face. But if you are, you can still hear me. You don't really need to see me, I guess. I will post a picture of the card, so if you can't, but I was going to do that anyway. All right, what is Samhain? Why do we celebrate it? What is it all about? All right, so I've done a couple of different Samhain videos. I've also done some, I did the 12 days of videos, 12 days of Samhain videos, which kind of broke down some of the things that you might want to do during Samhain. So please, if you haven't watched those, go ahead back and watch all of that. So it will hopefully fill in any gaps that I have today, because this is going to be kind of, like I said, just a short recap video. Samhain in the Gaelic language means summer's end. This was a festival that was celebrated by the Celtic people. It was often known as the Celtic New Year. So this would have been a time where, well, let me go back a tad bit. So this is the last harvest festival of 3. So they have 3 different harvest festivals. And basically anybody that has a garden knows that you have an early harvest, a mid-harvest, and then a late harvest. So this would be the late harvest, so the final harvest. And the reason it was considered their new year was because they basically divided the year into 2. So they had the light half of the year and the dark half of the year. So the light half of the year would start at Beltane. If you don't know about Beltane, you can go back and watch my videos on that as well. And then at Samhain. It's kind of close to the 2 times of the year that we change our clocks. So for the dark and light halves of the year. But they would have really, at this particular harvest festival, they would have been really focusing on getting as much harvested as they possibly could, getting things stored. They would have been bringing in any animals that they needed to for food. They would have been hunting. It really would have been all about preparing for winter. Now, with that being said, they did spend time doing their festival. Their festival would have typically lasted about 3 days, and that 3 days would have consisted of a lot of feasting, since it was a harvest festival, and a lot of drinking and dancing and bonfires, storytelling, just the basic things that you would have thought that they would have done back then. Samhain nowadays is typically celebrated today, which is October 31st, which is the same day as Halloween or All Hallows Eve, as it was known before as well. But really, the Celtics didn't have a calendar back then, and they didn't know exactly when October 31st was. So it would have been celebrated roughly between the fall equinox, which they do their fall equinox by the moon, and their winter solstice, which again is followed by the moon. So in that aspect, if you are somebody who celebrates Samhain based solely on the moon, you would have probably celebrated it Saturday night during the full moon. But typically, the Celtics did it somewhere in between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. So there was no exact date. But if you follow that logic somewhere in between, that would put us roughly around November 6th. So you certainly can celebrate it today. You certainly could celebrate it, have celebrated it Saturday night during the full moon. You could celebrate it November 6th, or if you're like me, kind of go all of them. So, I mean, it's pretty common for most of us. Like, we put up our Halloween decorations like a couple of weeks before, and we leave them up the whole time. So we don't celebrate just on October 31st for Halloween. So it's kind of that same for me for Samhain. It's kind of just a big encompassed thing. I celebrate it kind of the whole time. If you had to pick exactly 3 days to do it, I'm not really sure when I would do it. Probably closer to the full moon. But like I said, I usually just celebrate it like the whole time. That's kind of why I did like the 12 days of Samhain. So you could kind of like incorporate the whole time frame. Honestly, just do what feels right to you. If you want to celebrate during the full moon, if you want to celebrate on today, if you want to celebrate on November 6th, if you want to celebrate for 3 days, if you want to celebrate the whole time, whatever. Just do what you feel called to do. All right, let's see. Some of the things that I wanted to go over real quick as well is the thinning of the veil. You might have heard that terminology a lot lately. So what happens is during the 2 times of year, Samhain and Beltane, the veil between our world and the ancestral world, if you want to call it heaven, if you want to call it Summerland, if you want to call it the other world, the underworld, whatever, it's all the same place, in my opinion. If it's not your opinion, that's okay too. But during this time, so Samhain and again at Beltane, it's a really great time to do any type of ancestral work, ancestral connecting, and really tap into that opportunity, I guess, is the best way I can think to say it. is the opportunity to make that connection, because the veil is so thin, that those connections are going to be made a lot easier. So before I get into a little bit more of some of the things that you could do to celebrate, I did want to just talk about a few little where our traditions kind of came from. So I like to kind of just connect some of the dots for people for the more modern traditions to the more ancestral traditions. So the carving of pumpkins, where did that come from? It's something that we all love to do. We all go out and get our pumpkins and carve them and make them scary or weird or whatever. The Celtics, during their festival, a lot of times the festival would be in a main gathering place. And so along the roads to their houses, excuse me, it would have been very dark. There was no street lights. There was no cars with headlights. So it would have been very dark. And so they actually didn't have pumpkins then. They had turnips, and they would carve holes in them and light them and put them along their pathway or their roadway from the gathering place to their homes, to help light up the way, to scare off any unwanted visitors, ghosts or such, that might have tried to attack them on their way home, if it was dark out. So they would put these turnips with the holes in them, with candles in them, to help light up their way home, so that it would scare off any unwanted ghosts, ghouls, monsters, things that go bump in the night. So the tradition of us dressing up came from the Celtics as well. They would often wear scary masks on their way home. If they got away from the bonfire and things like that, they would wear different kinds of costumes and masks to either scare off the ghosts, or to trick the ghosts to think that they were also a ghost and not bother them. So that's kind of where that came from. And lastly, the treats. So where did we have the pumpkins for the turnips to light up the road? We have the masks to kind of trick the ghosts, and now we have the treats. So a lot of people back then would have left outside their doorway, when they would go to bed at night, treats for their ancestors. So they would have left out different kinds of foods, or beverages, alcohol, things like that, so that if their ancestors came to visit them during the night, their favorite foods, their favorite drinks, were outside the door for them. So that's kind of where trick or treat comes from. So, hi, Kimberly. So we just talked about Samhain, the meaning of Samhain, when we celebrate Samhain, kind of where some of the traditions come from, and the thinning of the veil. So we're going to just, again, this is going to be a pretty short video, because again, I've already done a couple different videos on Samhain, and the information really isn't going to change. It's the same tradition, it's the same things to celebrate, it's the same reasons. So there's really not anything new about Samhain to talk about. But yeah, so and Kimberly, can you see me again, because my camera is just stuck on just a picture of me, so I don't know if you guys can see me or not. But like I said, either way, as long as you can hear me, I guess that's like the biggest thing. So all right, so some of the things that you might want to do, and again, please go back and perfect, thanks, Kim. please go back and watch the 12 days of Samhain videos. The first one is a little longer. I think it was maybe a half an hour or so because it was talking about setting up an altar. So that was a little bit longer. The other videos are pretty short. I think they range from like 5 minutes to like 10 minutes roughly. So they're not real long videos, but they're going to just go over some things that you can do. So again, one of the big things is an ancestor altar. Like I said, please go back and watch those videos if you have more questions. But an ancestor altar is just a little spot that you're going to designate to connect with your ancestors. You're going to put, I put things like candles, I put a little broom, stones, you could put flowers, you could put crystals. I usually have a skull on there. And then, yeah, and then things that might be more towards who you're trying to connect with. So in the video I did, I often connect with my grandmother, whose name was Rosalind. And so I put roses on there. She also had roses, and she wore a rose perfume. So that I have some jewelry that was from her, so I would put that on there. And then you can, a photo would be really nice touch to put on there if there's someone specific you're trying to connect with. If you're just trying to connect with ancestors in general, you can just leave the photo off if you want. For my grandmother, I would put things, my grandma was very big into, she always wanted to have a cup of tea when you visited her. So I would put some tea bags out, and she always had little peppermint candies. So I would put a couple of peppermint candies on my altar. So just kind of figure out like what it is that you want on there. Are you trying to connect to someone specific? And what were things that might be like the ancestors did? They left out things that would be their favorite treats or their favorite things. So they would come visit because you would have their favorite foods. So you could do something like that. Again, lots of candles. Lighting the candles is again a symbol of the fire festival. If you can certainly have a bonfire, that's great. But if you can't have a bonfire, like I don't know if you have an apartment building or you don't have a big property or whatever reason you can't do a fire, candles is another great way to bring in that fire energy. And again, I have a video about how you can take an ordinary candle just from the dollar store and really kind of dress it up and make it yours and be setting your intention with that. So another thing, so lighting candles, your ancestor altar, a bonfire, you're having a fire. Yeah, we might have one maybe this weekend, depending on the weather. It's actually snowing here right now. But I usually do have lots of candles on my altar that I light during this time as well. You could do a harvest feast. And again, do it when you feel called to do it. If you want to do it tonight, that's great. If you did it on Saturday, that's great. In Ohio, I just spent 5 days in Ohio, Kimberly. I was there Thursday to yesterday. I got home late last night. Anywho, you could do a harvest festival, a harvest feast. And and you can Google these things, find them online. It's pretty easy. But you could make, they would have had soul cakes, which was kind of like I don't know, it's hard to describe. They're not really cookies, but they're not really a cake either. You could make a soul cake. So you could make some soul cakes. Another thing would be a mulled cider or a mulled wine. Those are pretty easy to make as well. If you can use a crock pot or just a pan. And again, you can either use a red wine or an apple cider or an alcoholic cider, I guess, but I don't really know. So you could add some spices to that. So, and you can actually buy mulled spice kits. I don't have any here because they're just super easy to throw together. But it would be things like cinnamon, maybe some ginger, some star anise, things like that. You throw it in the pot or the crock pot. I like the crock pot because it's more of a lower thing. You can do it on a low temperature. And you just let the cider or the wine, the UPS guys here, just kind of simmer with the spices in there and then drink it. Bread making would have been something that would have been pretty popular back then. So you could make some sort of bread. And there would have been the basic things that they would have probably been eating back then would have been potatoes, cabbage, and onion. And there was actually, they would make that all together. So they would take the potatoes, cook them, and then the onions and the cabbage, and then they would mash it all up. There's a name for it. I'm not going to even pretend to try to pronounce it. But yeah, so that was a traditional food back then as well. And then they would have been eating, depending on what it may have been, some sort of beef, deer, depending on what they had for livestock or what they had been able to get from hunting for a meat. So, and the last thing that I want to kind of talk about is divination. So this would have been during the thinning of the veil, divination, again, and that's another way of connecting to your ancestors. So divination would have been something that they would have been doing during Samhain time. And divination can be a lot of different things. It could be scrying, and scrying in itself can be a lot of different things. You could scry into a crystal ball. They probably didn't have a crystal ball back then. Scrying would have been typically done in a bowl of water or a body of water, and staring at the water for scrying. Nowadays, people like to do the black mirrors. So if you have, I just say go to dollar store, get a mirror, get a can of black spray paint, spray paint it, and then add your own touches to it to decorate it to make it feel yours. Um, whether you want to make it glittery or I like things more natural with, pine cones or leaves or sticks or things like that. I don't know why she just did that. Sorry. That was Alex. So you can decorate it to make it yours. So scrying in a mirror. But they would have typically done it in water. So if there wasn't a body of water nearby, they would have probably used some sort of bowl of water to scry in. Other forms of divination, they would have used bones and runes and things like that. Nowadays, we use more of our oracle cards and our tarot cards to do divination work. Pendulum would be a really good way to do some divination work if you wanted. Actually, the pendulum is one of my most favorite ways to do divination work. I do a lot. I pretty much have a pendulum nearby wherever I am. There's one in here on my desk. There's one in the therapy room. There's one that stays in my pocketbook. There's one next to where I sit in the living room. There's usually not one too far from me at all times to do your divination work. And you can always use your intuition as well. So you may want to do some dream analysis around this time is another great way. But yeah, just doing some divination and connecting to your ancestors. Whatever, again, follow your gut, whatever feels right for you. And you know, don't do things just because I told you to do things. If it doesn't feel right to you, then don't do that. But um, so, like I said, go back and watch those other videos. They're going to talk about making simmer pots. I talk about making your altar. I talk about ways to decorate your altar. Like I said, I have a video that I took the candle and decorated the candle. I think there's a video where I took the little broom and kind of doctored up the broom to make it more mine. Things like that that are going to be helpful to you. But before I go, I did want to talk a little bit about, I don't know if I've talked about this in my past videos because honestly, I do so many videos, I just don't remember what I cover in all of them. But if you really wanted to do some divination, you may be interested in doing a divination incense. Words are hard. So some of the herbs that you might want to use to do divinations are things that are just going to kind of soften you, things that are going to help you drop down, drop in. I don't know really how to explain it. It's just a very more relaxed state of mind that just kind of helps you let go of anything that might be holding you back, whatever belief that might be that's holding you back, and just putting you in a more of an accepting place, a place of being able to receive a little bit better. So I'm not going to go huge into all of this, but some of the things that you could use would be mugwort. You could burn some buchu. You could burn some passion flower. If you only have 2 of them or 1 of them or whatever, that's fine. You don't need all 3 of them. If you have all 3 of them, that would be amazing. But if you don't, you just have 1 or the other, that's perfectly fine as well. So however, whatever you have on hand is really great. If you don't have any of those, because those are not typically ones that a lot of people would have on hand, I don't think. I do, but another one that you could work with is cedar. Cedar is, pretty much, if you live where there's trees, a cedar tree, you could go get a piece of the cedar tree. I always ask the tree if it's okay to take a piece. For example, and I've said this a bazillion times before, I have a big cedar tree that's in my front yard, and it's right by my porch. And so the limbs grow kind of into the porch a little bit, which does not bother me whatsoever. But in the wintertime, when the snow comes off the roof, a lot of times it ends up breaking those branches off. So I will go to the tree and, I will let the tree know that I'm taking those branches to actually help protect the tree, and just cutting back what just needs to be cut back for his or her protection, usually his protection. And then I can use the cedar from the tree that I cut for any kind of work that I want to do. So you could bring some cedar in. And, I find you don't really need to burn it because it actually, cedar catches fire pretty quickly and burns pretty quickly. Just bringing in some fresh cedar, just make a little, tie it up and hang it somewhere in the house, maybe close to your altar or where you're going to do your divination work. It's a really good ancestral energy. The trees are so ancient and have a connection that um, I can't even explain to you in a short time. um, but it really does have an ancestral. It's a reason they're called grandfather trees, right? An ancestral energy to it. So you could bring in some just a little bit of cedar again. Or if you are have a cedar tree, look around and see if there's any branches on the ground that you could use. If it's a dead branch, maybe not the best, because you're not going to get that that smell that's going to give you that connection so much. But if there's a branch that's broke off or something, that would be great to do instead of taking it off the tree if you don't need to. So I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Is there anything, I don't know, is there anything, Kimberly, do you have any questions, anything that you're interested in that I didn't answer maybe? But like I said, this is a recap. And so, yeah, you can certainly go back and watch the other ones. But like I said, the information of Samhain is not going to change. Nobody's going to discover pretty much anything new on a festival that goes back thousands of years. So there's not really like any new modern thing. There are probably a lot of different religions. The first one I can think of is the Wiccan religion that may have different ways of honoring this time. They may do, it's not going to change. But the Wiccans may have some different rituals. They will have different ways of celebrating. I believe in a lot of the Wiccan core beliefs of the like do no harm, and what we put out is what comes back. But I don't particularly practice Wiccan per se as that and their practices. So if that's something you're interested in, there are a lot of people out there that can teach you about that, but it's not really my thing. So I'm not going to talk about something that I don't really know a whole lot about. But yeah, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today. I hope that something in here was helpful for you. I hope that something in here has made you want to either go do an altar or made you want to go decorate a candle or make bread or mull some cider or whatever it is that kind of was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to do that. So yeah. All right, guys. This is really annoying that I cannot see myself. But, maybe it's good. I usually get you're making bread. Perfect. I usually get distracted with my hair or whatnot. So maybe it's better I don't see myself. I don't know. But yeah, so I hope everybody has a really great week, a great weekend. I hope somebody will share this video to people that they think might be interested or might find something helpful in here. Yeah, the things I'm supposed to say, like, comment, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. But anyhow, happy Samhain. Whenever you decide to celebrate it, however you decide to celebrate it, it's really, for me, it's more of the connection to ancestors that is the important part to me. So with that, I hope you guys, just have a good Samhain. And I will see you Monday morning at 10. And we will go over our weekly astrology forecast as normal. So thanks for watching, guys. Love you.